Hey everybody, it's Scotty from Scotty's Record Shop with the third video to my vinyl finds for February 2013. I shot this video once before and it ran a little too long, way too long. So hopefully I didn't show you any of these. I just kind of lost track of what I showed, but I think I'm not going to show something that I showed in vinyl updates number 2. If I did, I apologize. But I'm trying to blow through these fairly quickly too. Instead of doing the long-winded presentations that I did before. So these are all $1, by the way, and most of them are in really, really great shape. This one was a record I had, believe, on cassette when it came out, the very first Robert Plant record. The second Robert Plant record, these are my 2 favorites, I believe. More, as big of a fan of his later '80s stuff. In great shape. I lost my copy of this in a storage situation where I lost about 300 albums, and I'm trying not. I want to get these guys' records back, but I just don't want to pay a lot for them. And this one was for $1, and it's mint. Synchronicity from the Police. In fantastic shape. So I jumped right on that one. Some late 60s pop, I guess would be the best way to describe this. Cheese. Gary Puckett and the Union Gap. This is an original pressing on the original white and red Columbia label, and it's in stereo. I think this also came out as well in mono, but this is a stereo pressing. Robert Palmer. I'm a big fan of Robert Palmer's 70s stuff. This was in great shape. So I grabbed it. Another one of my friends throwing it on the pile going, "You're going to love it, trust me." He did that. My friend Roger, when we were there, he did that to me a lot. He's a big Nancy Sinatra fan, and I like Nancy Sinatra too. And this was another great find for $1 in not perfect shape by any stretch, but this record is, 45 years old. So, but it's in decent shape, and it's an original pressing as well in stereo. The very first Night Ranger record in great shape. Didn't have this one. I think now I have the first 2 Night Ranger records. Hall & Oates live. I didn't have this one. I have quite a bit of Hall & Oates stuff, but not as much of the '80s stuff. And trying to build that up, and it was cheap. It was $1, and it's a good record. Huey Lewis and the News, their album 4, which is surprisingly enough their 4th album. I've got 3 of them. Wait a minute. Yeah, I've got 3 of them. I don't have the very, very first Huey Lewis album yet. I'll find that someday. It's a little harder to find, but I'll find it. But a good record from them. This had a lot of hits on it, which is great mid-'80s pop, Almost done with these guys. Always a big fan of Little River Band. When I was growing up, I loved the band. This was not their best record, but one of them I didn't have. I'm missing a couple of them from the '80s. From the later '80s. The stuff that came out after this that was on vinyl, Playing to Win, maybe Monsoon. I'm not really sure after this. I know Playing to Win was on vinyl. That one I'll see sooner or later in the dollar bin, or even for a couple $bucks I'll pick it up. But Little River Band, The Net, 1983. Back to the early '80s, right to the beginning. I'm in '70s. I'm sorry, right to the beginning of the '70s with Melanie. With this one on Buddha, great shape. I like Melanie. The first album from Lobo, who had quite a few hits in the early '70s on Big Tree Records. This one introducing Lobo with featuring the hit single "Me and You and a Dog Named Boo." If you were around in the early '70s, you know the song. Some good folk pop, I guess, would be if I had to label it. And we got some southern rock and roll from the Marshall Tucker Band. Their first record in great shape. I didn't have it. I figured, why not? Let's throw this in the pile, like Marshall Tucker, especially the early stuff. I think probably the last album I'm going to get from these guys. I've got everything up through the early 80s. Firefall out of Colorado. This is an album called Lunacy, or Lunar Sea. How you want to work that. A good record from them, and it was for $1, and it's in decent shape. I wouldn't call it mint, but it's in decent shape. This one I didn't have. I wasn't like killing myself trying to get it, but I love Foreigner. Not the biggest fan of their later 80s stuff, but yeah, for $1, and it's in fantastic shape. So it goes in the Foreigner section. Okay, these next two are upgrades from albums when I was a kid that just have been worn out. The covers especially, more than the vinyl, but all three of these first two are Mellencamp. Cougar. Great record. And the album that came out before that. Jack and Diane and Hurt So Good. It's a good record from him as well, and it's in good shape. Mine had a lot of ring wear and stuff on it, and I thought I saw it for $1, and it's like even the vinyl looked to be in better shape than mine. This is one that I didn't have from Mr. Mellencamp yet, and I do now. Wonderful pressing, later 80s album for him, but a really good record. And that goes in the Mellencamp section too. I think I'm missing the first couple, because I think he put out an album in like '76. It's kind of really hard to find, but I'll find that stuff someday. First time owner of this one. This is Lindsey Buckingham's first album. A little ring wear and stuff. The vinyl looked pretty good, and it was $1, and I didn't have any Lindsey Buckingham. Big fan of Fleetwood Mac, so I thought, God, let's go for it. This was a total upgrade copy. This is pretty much almost a mint copy of Crime of the Century from Supertramp, 1974. Definitely an upgrade. I've worn my copy out. The Moody Blues, I thought I had all my Moody Blues in order, but this was one that I've forgotten about, and it's kind of a forgettable album. It's not the best thing they did. It's their synth pop kind of era, which isn't my favorite era from the Moody Blues. But it goes in the collection to round it off. Tycoon, some late 70s rock and roll. And this had the somewhat hit single Such a Woman from '79. Haven't heard the whole album yet. Love the song. And mid-70s pop from a guy named Andrew Gold, who I actually do, to my time in radio, actually got a chance to come to know Andrew before he passed away. He was a great guy, really funny guy. I had this album as a kid. I don't know whatever happened to it. Lonely Boy was the big hit on this. This is another one of those blind guy, don't label your records like this. Even though I'm a blind guy and I can read Braille, I don't appreciate this. But I'll get this off. But a great record from Andrew Gold. I believe it was his second album. Anyway, got another pile to go through here. We'll get to that in just a second. So, until then, peace and love.